Now, one of the benefits for me, and actually I hope it's a benefit for you too, of having you guys leave comments is that I can sort of see where there's holes in what I have talked about in that video, and if possible to sort of fill in some of the gaps that I may not have communicated. And I do make a lot of assumptions that things that seem very normal to me or like kind of things that everybody should know are not necessarily things that everybody knows. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more about the 70th week of Daniel, actually that whole prophecy in Daniel 9, basically verses 24 through 27. These 4 verses encapsulate the relationship between the Jews, the city of Jerusalem, and the temple. Okay, and how God was going to bring deliverance to the Jews, and it would also involve Jerusalem and the temple. And the reason why this is important is because you'll have to remember at the time that Daniel got this prophecy, Jerusalem was destroyed. The temple was destroyed. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar had come in, destroyed the city, carried off people into exile, into Babylon, killed people. The temple was destroyed. He'd taken the gold and the furniture and different things from the temple and brought it into Babylon. What Daniel is wanting to know, I mean, his immediate question is, the 70 years are up. Will we indeed be going back to Israel, rebuilding the temple, so on and so forth? So the angel Gabriel is sent with a message to give to Daniel. And the message isn't just about the restoration of the exiles back to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the temple. He's actually giving Daniel the whole plan of salvation for the Jews in these 4 verses. Okay, the whole plan up until the end of the age when Messiah comes and brings deliverance to the Jews. Okay, at the end of the Great Tribulation for the Jews, Daniel is given this whole scenario. So number 1, he's told that yes, the Jews are going to go back to Jerusalem. They're going to rebuild the city, and they'll rebuild the walls, the temple, and everything. Okay, and that's going to happen over the course of 7 weeks of years, 49 years, and then there's going to be another 62 weeks of years, okay, and a week of years is 7 years. So the point of this prophecy, you got to understand, the point of this prophecy is how God was going to bring redemption to the Jews. The point of this prophecy is not about the Antichrist or when the Antichrist shows up or who the Antichrist is or any of that. It's solely about how God is going to use Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, and the temple to bring in redemption. So let's look at verse 24 of Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks are decreed for your people and your holy city to stop their transgression, to put an end to sin, to make atonement for iniquity. Stop there. Okay, so let's just take a look at these 3 particular things that are highlighted right here. The first thing is he's going to put a stop to their transgression. Okay, he's going to put an end to sin, and he's going to make atonement for iniquity. When I look at these 3 things, what I think about is Christ's first coming. Okay? Putting a stop to transgression, an end to sin, and specifically making atonement for iniquity. That all has to do with Christ's first coming. So the next 3 things on this list involve bringing in everlasting righteousness, sealing up the vision and prophecy, and anointing a most holy place or person. So it could either be the Messiah or it could be the temple, okay? A most holy thing, most holy place. Bringing in everlasting righteousness, sealing up the vision and prophecy, and anointing the most holy. All right, when I look at those things right here, I think of Christ's second coming. It's at his second coming that vision and prophecy is going to be sealed up. It's going to be over, okay? That everlasting righteousness will be brought in when Christ begins his millennial reign. He'll rule and reign in righteousness. And he's the person who is the most holy. He's the anointed. Now, he's also the anointed at his first coming, but that he will be recognized at his second coming. So what I see here basically is this, the promises that involve the Jews, Jerusalem, and the temple. This the 70 weeks of years prophecy is kind of talking about two parts, okay? Making an end to sin and transgression, making atonement, and then bringing in the good stuff, okay? Taking out the bad and bringing in the kingdom, sealing up vision and prophecy, bringing it all to a close, having the Messiah come on the scene, all of that. Okay, so I want you to hold that in your mind. We've got things that involve the first coming of Christ and items that involve the second coming of Christ, or that seem to pertain primarily to the second coming of Christ. So the way that the 70 years is broken down is into three groups, basically, okay? So we have a first group of 7 weeks of years, which is 49 years. And then we have another group of weeks of years, that's 62 weeks, and that is 432, excuse me. Now, we know that there's going to be 7 weeks plus 62 weeks of years. After that, Messiah will be cut off. So what we're looking at here is 483, about 483 years from the time that people go back to rebuild the city and the walls and all of that, and the time when they can start looking for the Messiah. It's after the 69 weeks that Messiah is cut off and has nothing. It doesn't say how long after the 69 weeks, but we know that it's after the 69 weeks that Messiah is cut off. Here's the part that people have trouble with. What number comes after 69? Okay, it's 70. Okay, so it's after 69 weeks, okay, Messiah will be cut off, and we can assume that Messiah is going to be cut off in the 70th week, because we're already done with 69 weeks. All that is over, okay? The 69 weeks, okay, we can say that's done. After that, Messiah is cut off, okay? Okay, and basically what that means is when someone is cut off, he doesn't leave posterity. That is, he dies. Okay, after the Messiah is cut off, it says this: then the people of a prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. Until the end, there will be wars and desolations have been decreed. All right, so Messiah is cut off in the 70th week. Okay, and after that, then the Romans come in under Titus, and they destroy the city and the sanctuary. Okay, that has been fulfilled. And verse 27 says this, that he, that is the Messiah, will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of the temple will come the abomination that causes desolation until the decreed destruction is poured out on him. The destruction is poured out on the one that causes the abomination. It's the Messiah who is going to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the 70th week now. Okay. Here's the first thing that happens during the 70th week. It says that he confirms a covenant with the many. The he is the Messiah. Okay, the he is the Messiah who is cut off, the anointed one who is cut off. It's not Titus, it's not the Roman army, it's not the people of a prince who is to come. That's refers to the Roman army who's going to be coming in after Messiah is cut off. The he who confirms the covenant is the Messiah. Now, people have said to me, well, how does Messiah confirm a 7-year covenant? And does he make a 7-year covenant? The word here is confirms. That is, there's already an existing covenant that God has made with his people. And here's the passage that talks about Jesus confirming a covenant, okay? That he is going to ratify this covenant that has already been made. Okay, Matthew 26, verses 27 through 29. Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Remember, forgiveness of sins was one of the things that the 70 weeks were all about. "I tell you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now until the day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." Okay, so that is talking about Christ's second coming. Romans 11, verses 26 through 27. In this passage, Paul is quoting from Isaiah 27:9. Okay, but this is how Paul states this. He says, "The deliverer will come from Zion. He will remove godlessness from Jacob." Okay, remember, that's one of the things that we read. Okay, he's going to stop the transgression and put an end to sin and make atonement for iniquity. He's going to stop the transgression of the Jews or Jacob. Verse 27 of Romans 11. "And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins." Okay, my covenant when I take away their sins. The Messiah confirmed a covenant. He didn't make a covenant. He confirmed a covenant that already existed between God and his people. He confirmed it actually in his own blood. And that's what Jesus said. This cup is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. And that's exactly what the rest of Daniel 9:27 says. That in the middle of the week, he'll put an end to sacrifice and offering. So after 3.5 years, he put an end to sacrifice and offering. Okay, he died. He died as the fulfillment of all the Old Testament sacrifices and offerings. Okay, and that has to do with the first coming of Christ. Okay, he confirms the covenant, and after 3.5 years, he's cut off. He puts an end to sacrifice and offering. Okay, then there's this word "and." This word "and" separates the first half of that week from the last half of that week. The last 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week, and I don't think there's any argument about this from most people who believe that Jesus is coming back, is about the second coming of Christ. Okay, and that last 3.5 years is going to start when somebody comes and does the abomination. Okay. This person is going to come on the scene. He's going to appear on the wing of the temple. This abomination of desolation. And actually, I think the abomination of desolation, even more than being an event, is a person. We're going to see the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not. This is an event, and it's a person. It's primarily a person. This person who's called the abomination of desolation, or the one who's it causes astonishment. Okay, and he's going to be in existence until the decreed destruction is poured out on him. That is the second coming of Christ. And that's when this man of sin, this one who causes abomination of desolation, is going to be destroyed. Okay, so this all has to do with the second coming of Christ, which is also 3.5 years long. Okay, so the first coming was 3.5 years. And the events surrounding the second coming are 3.5 years, or 42 months, or 1,260 days. The 70th week is the only one of all of the 70 weeks of Daniel that's broken in half, that there are two parts of it. And it's all about God putting away sin. And the first part is basically Christ's first coming, when he stopped transgression, put an end to sin, and made atonement for iniquity. All of that he did at his first coming. And then there's another part to the week, okay, the last half, the last 3.5 years, that have to do with Christ's second coming, which will start right where Jesus said it would. For the Jews, it's going to start with an event when we see this man of sin. We see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place where it ought not. Paul also said that it's going to start when we see the man of sin, that the day of the Lord, that is the second coming of Christ, isn't going to happen until the man of sin takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming that he's God. Same thing right here. And Daniel 12 talks about after Michael arises, which is really when Michael kicks Satan out of heaven. Right about that time, there's going to come this time of trouble for the Jews, like has never been before, nor ever will be again. And it's going to be for a time, times, and half a time, or 42 months, 3.5 years, the last half of the 70th week of Daniel. All right. This actually is scriptural. Okay. Now, when people wanted to make that 70th week all one week that begins with an Antichrist person confirming a covenant and then breaking off that covenant in the middle of the week and then having the abomination, all of that, none of that has anything to do with stopping transgression, putting an end to sin, making atonement for iniquity, or any of that. Where do we find that in the prophecy if we say that it's the Antichrist who confirms the covenant and it's the Antichrist who stops sacrifice and offering? This is not about the Antichrist. Okay. This whole passage is about how God is going to deliver the Jews in the rebellion and bring them into basically the kingdom. Okay? Putting an end to this guy when he comes at his second coming. All of this is about Jesus. This is a prophecy about Jesus, and it's not a prophecy about the Antichrist. So we're not looking for a 7-year covenant here. We're not. That is, the Antichrist is not going to make a covenant with anybody. The Jews only have 3.5 years left. That's all they have left. And the book of Revelation is not primarily about that last 3.5 years that is for the Jews. The book of Revelation, most of the contents of the book of Revelation have to do with the birth pangs that take place before the abomination of desolation, before that period of time. The book of Revelation is the birth pangs. And the sixth trumpet will take place at the time of the abomination of desolation. We know that's when the woman will have to flee into the wilderness. That's when the remnant of Israel will have to go into the wilderness for 1,260 days. That's when their 3.5 years starts. Is right here with the abomination of desolation. And we know that that hour is going to be the sixth trumpet in the book of Revelation. And I've talked about that in a lot of other videos. So I just thought I would do this video to actually try to bring some more clarity to the subject. It's really hard to think in a different way when we've been told over and over again that, and it's, I understand the difficulty here. Believe me, I do, because I was a staunch pre-tribulation, 7-year tribulation, rapture person, about 4 years ago. I know the doctrine for that. But that doctrine is built without an understanding of Revelation. Okay. And if you were to go look in older commentaries, if you go to, I'm trying to think, I think Bible Hub is the online resource that I generally use. If you go to the prophecy of Daniel 9, 24 through 27, the way that people saw this in the past was that Christ was the one who confirmed the covenant at his first coming. That's how people read this. That's how it's been taught for many, many, many years. And it's only in fairly recent history that, with the whole idea of the second coming of Christ and the pre-tribulation rapture and all of that, that people have thought that it's the Antichrist. And I think a lot of this also came about with a book called The Coming Prince by Sir, I think his name was Robert Anderson. I haven't read the book, I only know about it, but I think he thought that the coming prince was the Antichrist, and that the Antichrist was the one that was being prophesied about in Daniel 9:27. And he's the one who did all the calculations for the years and all of that. For all intents and purposes, most of this Daniel 9 prophecy deals with Christ's first coming. So it was up to the people who were living in the first century to be able to analyze the dates and all of that and know that it was time for the arrival of Christ. And the people at that time were in expectation of their Messiah appearing. And so when there were all these false Christs that were trying to appear, that did come and all of that, it was par for the course. And when John the Baptist came on the scene, everybody was ready for a Messiah to show up, because they could, figure out, from their records, how long it would be until Messiah would come. And so they were in expectation, and they thought maybe John the Baptist was the Messiah. But when Jesus came and he didn't do what they thought he ought to do, they didn't realize that Jesus' appearance would have two parts to it: his first coming and then his second coming. And that the first aspect of his arrival would have to do with putting away sin. And that is what Jesus did. So I hope you can, kind of try to rearrange your thinking about this, because if you can see that Daniel 9:27 is actually talking about the first coming and then the second coming of Christ, it's going to be a whole lot easier to interpret other scriptures that have to do with other things. And you won't be locked into this, what I consider a false understanding of an Antichrist having to come, do a peace covenant and all of that. That's just really that, in my mind anymore, that's just crazy talk. Okay. It's okay. You can hold that position if you like, but I don't think it's a worthy position, not considering everything that we see here. When we really dive into the passage, it's not talking about the Antichrist at all. Okay, that's my opinion. You can think what you like, but I hope you will consider what I've shared here today. Thank you for leaving those comments. I really appreciate all my subscribers. I really even appreciate the comments of people who don't always agree with me, because that actually helps me in, formulating content for all you guys out there. So hope you're encouraged. We'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.